Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie, and welcome to this little series that I'm doing on family annihilators. Now, this is a very unique phenomenon that is exclusive to men. Sorry about the sound effects from the dog. She's giving her opinion on family annihilators. Now, in this series, because what I did, do you remember I put a video out giving a brief sort of synopsis of 5 cases of family annihilators, some of which I thought you would know about and some that I thought you probably wouldn't know about. And I asked people to say which one they would like me to do a deep dive on. And I think generally everybody wanted a deep dive on different ones. And I think all the cases were thought of as interesting, and the victims deserve to be discussed. Their names should be remembered, etc. So what I decided to do in the end, because I thought, well, it does seem wrong to just do a deep dive on one of these cases, because all these cases are equally important. So I'm doing a series of 5 videos about these 5 family annihilators. And each one I'm going to start off with an introduction. First of all, I'm going to light a candle for all the victims or anyone that's affected by these cases. This candle is for you. And also, I'm going to go into each of the cases in a deep dive. And the cases that I will be talking about are Anthony Todt, John Miles Sharp, Christian Longy, Michael Haidt, and Chris Watts. Now, some of those names will be known to you and some probably not. But anyway, first one I'm going to talk about is Anthony Todt. And the thing is, it's not their names that are so important. The most important thing is the victims. But having said that, all of them are important because we have to try and understand why these things happen. So what I want to talk about first of all is how or why do these things happen? What drives a man to kill his whole family? And often they go on to take their own lives afterwards, but often they don't. It's a very odd scenario because they take their family away and then either, kill themselves, or they know that they're going to prison for life, but they're prepared to do that. I think what's important as well is trying to understand it. So you can imagine there's been a lot of investigations. So let's have a look. What is a family annihilator, first of all? So I just want to look at how it's described. So now we used to have an expression called familicide, but it's changed now to a family annihilator, which seems to describe things more succinctly, if you like. And there are various things that can trigger it. So a family annihilator always kills his children, and often, but not always, his partner. So it's always the children that are killed, but sometimes the partner is not killed. I think that's probably to do with accessibility, whether they can get to the partner or not. Because quite often they will kill their children when they've got custody of them, or they'll kill their children to hurt their partner or ex-partner, to do damage to their ex-partner. So this term was coined in the 1980s by a forensic psychiatrist as a substitute for the more placid term familicide. And it means a parent, what its definition is, a parent, almost always a father. I mean, literally, is virtually unheard of for a woman to kill her whole family, who massacres their own immediate family in a short time, normally on the same day or over, a day or a couple of days. So that is a family annihilator. And what I found on, there are various triggers, and I found this, what would you call it? It's like a paper, if you like, that's been prepared. Family Annihilators, Psychology of Murderous Fathers. And what they say is there are 4 pre-familicide trends. So there are 4 things that might contribute towards a man killing his family. Family breakdown. So that's, obvious, isn't it? If the woman maybe wants a divorce, the father's not prepared to give it. Financial distress is a big thing. Mental illness and social status and paternal expectations. Now, I suppose within family breakdown, because I think a common thing that makes men do this horrible, horrible thing is because they fall in love with another woman. So it's not only if the wife wants to leave the husband, it's when the husband finds the family cloying, like it's stopping him from moving on with this new woman, normally a younger woman that he's fallen in love with, and he wants to start again. He wants to go back to the beginning. He doesn't want his children. He doesn't want his wife. Doesn't want anything hanging, holding him back. And I think it quite often happens when the wife becomes pregnant again, because, in circumstances where the husband is having an affair, he's normally still sleeping with the wife as well, and that might surprise some mistresses out there. If he tells you he's not sleeping with his wife, he's probably lying. He will still be sleeping with his wife. And then quite often the wife gets pregnant again, and then he can't tell his girlfriend this, because he's been telling this. I think probably happened with Chris Watts and various family annihilators. They can't tell their new partners that their wife's pregnant again, because then that's admitting to the fact that they have been sleeping with them all this time, even though they're having an affair with them, and telling them their relationship is over. Men do tell lies, so they'll be telling their mistress, that my relationship with my wife is over. I know this from personal experience. My relationship with my wife is over, blah, de, blah, de, blah, de, blah. Now, sometimes maybe it is, but more often than not, he's still having a relationship with his wife. He's lying to both of you, not just to his wife. So suddenly his wife becomes pregnant, and it's like, oh my God, how am I going to tell my girlfriend my wife's pregnant when I've told her that I'm actually, not, I'm not sleeping with her anymore. But quite often these people just kill their wives. They don't kill their whole family. So it's quite, it's rare, but obviously not unknown. There's quite a lot of cases, because quite often the father will kill the wife, and vice versa, sometimes the other way, so that they get custody of the children, because they don't want to let their children be brought up by another man or another woman, so they dispose of their wife to end that problem. Children come to live with them, all solved, and they build a nice new happy family with their new partner. But these family annihilators, they don't want the children either, and I think that always sort of totally confuses us, that anyone could do that. It's bad enough that they could do it with their partner, but to do it to their children, to kill their children, is beyond most of our understandings, isn't it? And they do it because they think they own that family. These people normally, the family belongs to them. Like their car belongs to them, or their house, or anything that they own. So they own them, so they have the right to take their life. So according to this paper, there are these I just want to read out a little bit. I can't read out the whole paper, it's a very long paper, but I just want to read out the psychology of murderous fathers, the introduction. So familicide is broadly defined as one family member killing multiple other family members, where the goal is to destroy the family unit. So yeah, bear in mind, this is to destroy the family unit, not because they want to take the family with them in their new relationship. They just want to obliterate the family. So it is relatively rare as a whole in comparison with other forms of crime. And the most common form of familicide is the murder of at least one child and a spouse or an ex-spouse or an intimate partner. So these events are considered a type of mass murder, as multiple people are killed in a short period of time. I think I'll just show this so that you can see it as I'm reading it. So now I'm not going to read out the whole thing, but the two components of familicide are uxoricide, which is the killing of one's wife, and filicide, the killing of children by their parents. So in almost every case it is premeditated, and the perpetrator views his family members as property, such that he maintains the right to end their lives. Regardless of motive or history, this typically stems from the belief that they are solely responsible for their family's needs. Perpetrators need to maintain their masculinity, which is tied to the family unit, as well as control and power over their family members. And when these factors are threatened, they act out against the family violently and fatally. Gosh. When fearing abandonment, offenders adopt a media complex. If I can't have them, no one can. Exemplified through the murders. Studies of these cases provide insight into how the psychological process of marital conflict and parent-child conflict interact. Okay, so as I say, I'm not going to read everything out, but I just want to read the salient points, the important points. So in this thesis, so this is a thesis, only male offenders will be considered. The majority of these offenders are between 30 and 50 and use a firearm as their method of killing. Typically, child victims are the biological offspring of the offender. He said, that's just amazing, isn't it? 78% of familicide offenders in the Netherlands and 96% of offenders in Britain killed their own biological children. Gosh, you just can't believe that somebody could kill their own child, can you? Anyway, across cases in the United States between 2000 and 2009, there was an average of 2.81 victims, where the adult was primarily female and the children were slightly more female than male. 52% female, 48% male. Well, there's not much difference there, is that's pretty much a bit like the Brexit vote, really, isn't it? Although 20% of the cases involved stepchildren, spouses were almost always the primary source of the offender's anger. 69% of offenders lived with all of their victims during the crime, while an additional 10% lived with at least one of the victims. And most of the offences occurred within the victims' homes. 73% of the murders involved a firearm, and the remaining 27% were conducted in more intimate manners, such as sharp and blunt force trauma and strangulation, or smothering, as we know in the Chris Watts case. So the distribution of familicides was relatively even amongst US states, with the exception of an uptake in Texas. The occurrence of familicides across rural, suburban and urban cities only varied by about 5%, but doesn't seem to matter where you live, apart from if you live in Texas. Regionally, the South had the most familicides, 46%, including Texas, followed by the Midwest, the west, and the northeast. And I'll tell you, I bet most of those places, because what I've noticed in these family annihilations, quite often these are religious people. You know, this just even shocks me even more. You know, Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or, you know, God-fearing people who go to church on a Sunday. They've always got this perfect outside life. August had the highest rate of familicides as children were out of school and therefore more accessible to offenders. For the same reason, weekends throughout the year saw more familicides than weekdays. The offenders reflect law-abiding citizens and sufficient husbands and fathers before their offence. There was rarely a legal violent history or excessive substance abuse. A minority of offenders had histories of criminality, mental illness, or need for social service assistance. Now that surprises me as well. So additionally, offenders had been employed throughout a wide diversity of fields. In all cases, there was some history of unsolved problems contributing to the seemingly abrupt outburst. Offenders attempted to separate their feelings of low self-esteem, depression, and large goals from their definition of the self. Outbursts of violence belong to the two. Bridge the two. Okay, so now I want to look at the pre-familicide trends. So these are the sort of pre-familicide trends that we would understand, because a lot of in this paper is quite technical, etc. But we'll understand this, okay? Family breakdown. A history of domestic violence was the most common risk factor in familicide cases. 51% of familicide offenders in the US between 2000 and 2009 had previously been suspected or charged with domestic violence. Another study found that only 25% of offenders had previous arrests related to domestic violence. Domestic violence, including stalking, physical restraint, controlling behaviours, violent threats, and denial of separation or rejection, was most predictive of familicide when combined with other risk factors such as childhood abuse, trait vulnerability, and psychosis. And additional risk factors include access to a gun, previous violent threats, and extreme jealousy and/or depression. Okay, then the second one, financial distress. So another primary motive of familicide is financial struggles, which greatly increases the risk of familicide when combined with a history of domestic violence. Gosh. Yeah, you put all that in the mix and it's a perfect storm, isn't it? However, the extent of economic influence in familicides differs across studies and populations. Thing is, you know, most families, there's not many families that aren't in some sort of financial distress. So there's got to be more factors to just the financial distress. Anyway, in a 3-decade review of all British familicide cases, financial stress was the primary motive in 29% of cases, while 18% were unemployed. In a study investigating offenders of familicide who received mental health analysis and/or treatment before their offence, 41% of the offenders were unemployed. Mental illness. Yeah, as early as 1806, mental health issues were thought to be a factor in familicides. So I would imagine that if you, I don't have to go into all the figures of it, but if you put that together with the, you know, you've got the family, you've got stress, you've got the financial stress, probably a mixture, the mental health issues, probably a mixture of all the issues is what contributes to it. You know, you've got, in a lot of the cases I've looked at, there's a family breakdown, financial distress, or people who, I think with Chris Watt's case, they didn't have financial distress, but at the end of the day, Shannon was the one in charge of the money, wasn't she? And I think Chris Watts, he just literally, he was so obsessed with his new girlfriend, he just couldn't see anything else. I mean, it's awful, isn't it? He was just, everything, even his own children weren't as important as that girlfriend of his. He was completely, absolutely obsessed with Nicole Kissinger. So mental illness, social status, and paternal expectations. That I find that interesting. Some men don't want to be a father, so I think some of the cases we'll look at, you'll see that the father, when his wife became pregnant again, I mean, as far as Chris Watts was concerned, he had another woman, didn't he? But I think some of the cases that we might look at, one in particular, that John Miles Sharp in Australia, in Victoria, who murdered his wife and daughter with a bloody spear gun, of all things. I just think he didn't want to be married anymore, and his wife had become pregnant again, and I think he just didn't want to cope with it all. It was just like, oh, I just want to go back to being single. I don't know for certain that he had. When we do the deep dive into it, I'll find out if he had another woman or, but not necessarily that he had another woman, is it? Just that he just didn't want to do it anymore. He had one child, and she'd had some issues, Gracie, and it just got on his nerves. I think he just wanted to go back to being single, which is just horrible, isn't it? That quite often happens. So the 5 people that we're going to look at, we're looking at the Todt family murders. Let me just I'm going to put up on the screen the people that we're going to look at. And we're going to do them in the order that they're here. I thought about doing them in a different order because some of you were more interested in some cases than another. But I think I'll do them in the order that I first mentioned them. Yeah. So up in the corner there, we've got Chris Watts. Down in the left-hand corner, we've got this case that people didn't know much about, Michael Haidt. I call that the Sound of Music family. I mean, you just can't believe that he killed all those children, and not only them, but his mother-in-law as well. In the right-hand corner, we've got the guy I was talking about, this John Miles Sharp. I don't know why, for me, it just seems like the worst one. I think because he is just so... Anyway, when we come to tell the story, when I come to tell you what happened, it's just so cold-blooded what he did. I mean, they were all cold-blooded. They're all horrible people. But then we've got Anthony Todd up in the right-hand corner. You can see him there with the orange jumpsuit. And he murdered all his family, including the dog. And there in the middle, up at the top, just above my face, you've got Christian Longo, who murdered his family. And out of them, the only one that then deleted themselves was this guy in the left-hand corner, Haidt, Michael Haidt, or Haidt, I don't know how you pronounce it, Haidt or Haidt, probably, Haidt. And he did delete himself afterwards, but the others didn't. They were too cowardly to do it to themselves, but they... I mean, how do you do that? When you look at them all arm in arm, like with their kids, or I just cannot imagine. I think Anthony Todd up here in the right-hand side, he's the one we're going to look at first. To me, he's the one that most had maybe mental health issues. But also those other things applied to him, financial stress. Quite often these men turn out to have been like Walter Mitty characters, lying, covering up things, covering up financial stress, etc. There's many other cases. These are the 5 that I'm going to spotlight. And I'm going to start with Mr. Todt. So let's start with Mr. Todt. Let's start with this case. This happened in near Disneyland. I mean, this case is referred to sometimes as the Disney murders. Now, you know, I'd like to give a warning here because, you know, we're all sensitive to these things and they are upsetting, the thought of children being murdered by their own father. So I just want to make you all aware of that. But let's have a look at him. Why is that not coming up? Hang on. Oh. Right, I'm trying to show the picture of him and I'm not quite sure why it's not coming up. Oh, I know why. Well, I think I know why. Well, there it is. So here he is with his children. Looks like a proud father, doesn't he? He looks completely, you know, everything looks normal. You just never know, do you? Just never know. And here is his wife with the children. Another picture of his wife with the children. So I am going to put that up again shortly. Anytime, perhaps every now and again, I will put the picture of the wife and children up just so they remember who we're talking about. And also, of course, he killed the dog, Breezy. The dog was called Breezy. Didn't even let the dog go. You know, he killed all of them. But let's hear a bit about this story. I mean, this is probably the only guy that out of all these that I have a little tiny bit of sympathy with because, you know, Anthony Todt, he had, his father wasn't up to much. You know, his father, Robert, was arrested in July 1980 and charged with hiring one of his former students to shoot and kill his wife. His wife, Loretta, because he wanted to marry his mistress. Now, as far as I know, I don't think that Anthony Todt had a mistress, but I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I don't think Anthony Todt's murder of his family was associated with another woman. It was more to do with financial things and mental illness, I think. But anyway, at this time in 1980, Anthony or Tony, he was only 4 years old at the time. And he witnessed the attack on his mother. So that won't have set him off on a very good path, would it? So he's 4 years old. He's witnessed an attempted murder of his mother that it turns out is arranged by his father. A hit that's arranged, an attempted hit that's arranged by his father. And he was, though, having said that, the assassin was apparently strictly instructed not to hurt Tony. You know, so the assassin was instructed, only kill the wife, don't kill the child. Oh, you know, I mean, it's just weird, isn't it? So anyway, Loretta survived. So Tony's mum survived that attack with a bullet to the head, but she survived. And she went on to remarry. Good on you, Loretta. Good for you. Anyway, in college, Tony dated Megan, who would later become his wife. And she was a physical therapist and a yoga instructor. He started dating her in college and later they married. And they both worked together briefly, well, for a while, at a shared physical therapy clinic that they owned. However, after the children were born, Megan then became a stay-at-home mother while Anthony managed their clinic. Let's put the picture back up. I'd like to put the picture up while we're talking about her. So it seems like she wanted, you know, to be a stay-at-home mother. She gave up her career. She gave up everything. for whatever reason, whether there was any coercive control there, or maybe she genuinely just wanted to do it because she wanted to be, spend more time with the kids. Who knows? Because that's sort of between them, I suppose. But anyway, Anthony then, Tony Anthony, he carried on managing the clinic. Anyway, they were well known in the community. The children were involved in all the activities, etc. Tony volunteered as a youth soccer coach and worked with disabled children. In 2017, according to Tony, so remember, we haven't got Megan's side of anything. We've only got what Tony says because he's got rid of Megan. He says she contracted Lyme disease after a tick bite during a trip to Disney World, and she then, after this, started to suffer with bouts of depression, and she became more reserved and isolated. Now, did she though? Was it because of that, or was it because of him becoming more and more controlling against her? Anyway, finally, they moved to Celebration. I mean, what a name. I want to show you a picture of their house, actually. Seems to be taking a while to coming up. And oh. Come on. Oh, it's not coming up. For some unknown reason, everything's been coming up okay, and then I'm pressing the wrong button, of course. So this is where they lived, in Celebration. A lovely name. It was a specially built sort of complex, if you like it. It's attached to or connected with Disney World. Beautiful house, isn't it? And that's where they moved to. So, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Bless me. So, in 2017, that's when they moved. And after they'd lived in Connecticut for several years. But Anthony continued working in Connecticut at the clinic, and he came home weekly to visit the family. And whereas they were active in their Connecticut community, they became withdrawn and uninvolved with their new community. I do feel like Todd might have gone through some sort of a nervous breakdown, because the other thing that happened, he gained a lot of weight. I mean, you can see from the photos of, well, certainly when he was arrested, how much weight he'd put on. It looks like, he was suffering in some way, and he received a diagnosis of diabetes. Anyway, it all started going really wrong in April 2019, because it turned out that Anthony was charging patients for care that they had never received. So he was, committing fraud. I want to put the picture up of Anthony with his children. So that's what he was doing. He was charging patients for care they had never received, and an investigation ensued, which revealed that he was using the excess money to pay for the family home in Celebration, as well as trips to Disney World. So despite her apparently being bitten by a tick on a visit to Disney World, they were still going on regular trips to Disney World. So he'd taken additional loans from firms in New York City, and he was being sued for failure to pay. And he was over $100,000 in debt when this annihilation happened. Now, he did maintain at first his innocence, but eventually he relented and admitted to the fraud. But it's believed by investigators that Megan had no idea about what was going on with her husband, as she by then was not involved in the business anymore. So it seems to me that all this was going on, it was putting pressure on Todd. I think he was, what we talked about earlier, financial pressure, He's just like losing the plot gradually, isn't he? And I honestly, reading between the lines, and I don't know because I wasn't there, but it seems to me that when Megan started becoming more and more withdrawn, it makes you wonder, was he becoming more and more unhinged, and maybe she was scared, maybe there was coercive control, maybe there was domestic violence. You know, probably a lot of women keep things to themselves, don't they? Anyway, this culminated in the police going round to the house to arrest him. So the police went round to that house to arrest him. That's how it all came out. Now, let me tell you about the events of that day. So apparently, in 2019. They stayed in celebration for Christmas for the winter. Now, normally they return to Connecticut from Florida during the winter because they like the snowy weather, apparently. But in 2019, they did not go back to Connecticut. They stayed in celebration. So the initial welfare check was done on the family on December the 29th, and the police received no response from anyone inside the house. However, investigators from the Department of Health and Human Services office returned on January the 13th, 2020, after disturbing texts began appearing on family members' phones from Anthony Todt. So I wonder if we can get up these texts, the actual details of them. So bearing in mind, this probably all happened at Christmas. I think it was, I don't know, we'll find out in a minute. Because Todd changed his story, or Tony changed his story so many times. So what he did, the messages he was sending, these are the sort of things that he was sending to his family. Oh gosh. One of them where you go on it and then they start getting you to subscribe, etc. Oh, let's have a look at a bit of his confession. I think with this you will get an idea of why I think he was probably mentally ill at the time. Let's have a look at him. This is him being interviewed.
Sorry for the delay. All right.
Let's see the attorney's up here real quick. Received an inquiry.
We found out the best drug to use was a drama. It's the stuff in Benadryl. It's the safest way to put away. The safest way to put in. So it didn't work. So we kept thinking, talking, and just researching different things. And finally, we started researching. We said, we're just going to have to do some sort of exsanguination. Okay? Bleed to death.
Sorry.
Okay? That's how they used to do it way in the back, where they used to do sacrificial things.
You take a bleed to death?
Bleed to death.
Right, hang on. I've got to take this off first, haven't I? Right, sorry, bear with it. I'm only going to show a bit of this anyway because it's very long. It's his whole confession video, and also it's the court case. I just want you to see him talking to get an idea of him.
To stab, to do, whatnot, so the kids could bleed to death, maybe in combination with the sleep drug. Okay? And that's how everything led up to be.
Okay. So that's through research. You guys have found, now you're saying you and your wife did this together?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So he confessed when he was first arrested, but he said him and his wife had researched ways that he put, you know, what makes me so mad about this guy is he put so much blame on his wife. You know, who's that like? Chris Watts, wasn't it? Saying, first of all, that the wife had killed the children and then she stabbed herself. Well, that's what he said later on. In the first instance, he said that he and his wife had killed the children together.
So doing all the research and everything, how did we get to Monday morning? What take me back to the holidays? When do you think the children died? That type of stuff.
I'm still trying to remember when the children died. I can't put those pieces together.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, you can't put them pieces together because it didn't happen the way he's saying. Anyway, just let me, so what I need to do now really is tell you about what happened when the police finally gained access to the property, because we're sort of jumping ahead a bit there. But yeah, these cell phone texts were things like the family were concerned because Tony was saying, no, we're going off grid for a while. We won't be around for a while. We're going to drop out for a while. You know, things that the family knew would not be things that his wife would have sent. They were coming from her phone sometimes. Well, actually, I don't know that they were coming for her phone. But anyway, there were things that Megan would never do. She would never just go off grid, etc. So the family became concerned, and it was the family that sent the welfare check, that sent the police round for the welfare check. So although they were supposedly still in Florida, mail was piling up on the porch. An eviction notice was placed on the door, so they were losing the house. A warrant was issued for his arrest, and authorities arrived at the home. So the warrant for his arrest was from the fraud, and you know, from the charging for things that he, you know, at the clinic that he had. So finally, the police actually turned up at the home with the warrant for his arrest. So apparently he wandered out of the house. He was shaking. The police got a key from the property's landlord, and the authorities finally entered the home and very sadly discovered a strong smell, which we all know what that means. And in beds throughout the house, the family members were discovered stabbed in their stomachs. Sorry, I'll just give you the brief details. And smothered to death with crucifixes in their hands. So the little girl, Zoe, she was so badly decomposed they couldn't even find her because she was so tiny. It wasn't until they examined Megan's corpse and saw Zoe's body beneath her feet, and also the family dog Breezy was lying dead on the floor in their dog bed in the master bedroom. Now he said he had consumed a large amount of Benadryl in what he claimed was a suicide attempt, and the children had also been drugged with Benadryl. So he was 48, well, or he is 48 now, I suppose. Yeah, he's 48 now. He was born in September the 29th, 1975. He was a perpetrator. The victims were Megan, age 42, Alexander, age 13, his son, Tyler, his son, 11, and Zoe, age 4, and Breezy, the family dog. I do love the fact they include the dog in this because, you know, that is it is a criminal act to murder an animal for no reason. Anyway, initially he claimed that he couldn't quite remember all the events, and his initial confession that he made, he said it had been made under duress, and that's when he started saying that Megan had murdered the children. She'd been depressed for ages. She'd murdered the children and then stabbed herself. And that's what he said in his court case. But anyway, it didn't work. He was given life in prison without the possibility of parole. And in a landmark move, which good, but I hope it changes things in the future, 1 year of additional, it's not enough, is it? 1 extra year of incarceration was added to his sentence for animal cruelty for killing the dog. Now, I want to show you this picture of him in court. So he was crying. So by the time he came to court, he was looking a bit healthier. Prison life must have been agreeing with him. So he's, you know, pretending to cry in court. But it was in court that he testified that apparently became emotional and he was crying at times. He blamed the killings on his wife. He testified that his wife, 42-year-old Megan Todt, had been struggling with depression from medical ailments after losing a baby and had started looking more into the afterlife. And he said he arrived in their home to find his wife had killed their children. He claimed that his wife was still alive at the time, but she stabbed herself. I came home and my kids were dead. It was the most horrible time of my life. What made it even worse is that my wife died in front of me. So he's trying to get everyone to feel sorry for him. Anyway, he said he told his wife he would take the blame for the killings, but he added that he didn't remember confessing to investigators. Anyway, it didn't work. Luckily, none of this worked. So that's good. I'm going to go back to his interview if I can. What have I done with it? Oh, no, I can't. Oh, I wanted to go back to, oh yeah. Just going to go back to him being interviewed because there's another video I want to look for that I want to show you all.
We wanted the kids to stick around for the Christmas holiday concert because we didn't want to disappoint that.
Did you guys celebrate Christmas Day?
No, the kids were there before Christmas.
Because family is saying that that they spoke with Megan the day after Christmas. Was Megan alive the day after Christmas?
No, she died right the day after the boys did.
Right. I remember you saying that the other day. That's why I've made contact now with your family and with Megan's family. And so Megan's family is 99% sure that looking back through cell phone records and stuff that they spoke with her, not text message. They spoke with her the day after Christmas. And she said the children were sick.
No.
Okay, so you're adamant that they died before Christmas?
Yes.
Okay. The children you said.
So he's adamant they died before Christmas, but texts were received from the family after Christmas. Well, those texts weren't from Megan, were they? They were from him. Anyway, what I'm going to show you now is, we may come back to that in a moment, but I just want to show you the dash cam footage of them arriving at his...
Tony, come to the door.
We knocked. No one came to the door. The door was unlocked, so we popped it open. We slowly made our way in. He was at the top of the stairs.
Tony, you coming downstairs? All right. Tony, you upstairs? Hey, come downstairs, bud. Everything's all right. Just stay calm. The children here?
I can't understand what you're sleeping last night.
We asked him where Megan and the children were. He said Megan was upstairs sleeping, and he also called for her. We were getting no answer.
What's your wife's name?
Megan.
Megan?
Megan.
All right, come on down, bud.
We made our way upstairs to check on the children and check on Megan. The master bedroom door was open.
Got a locked door.
Megan?
What officials find next is unimaginable.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to put you back to the interview again while I'm just looking for some other things on here.
Hours or so, a day prior to Megan?
Correct.
Okay, so let's go to the day of their death. How did this go down?
Woke up at 11:30 at night. We set the alarm for 11:30 at night, and got up out of bed. And it was to Zoe first.
Okay.
Meg walked me to the room, and she walked back into her room.
Step by step. So you guys are sleeping in the master room, I'm assuming,
Yes, but okay. And the dog.
and the puppy. Okay. Which boy was upstairs?
Zoe was upstairs in her room.
Okay.
Alek was upstairs in his room. Tyler was asleep downstairs in the library room.
And why again was he down there?
The two of them were sick, so we kept them apart.
Okay. All right. So, okay, go ahead, sir.
Okay. So we walked to the door, put it to Zoe's door. Meg and I hugged and kissed, and pretty much we know what we need to do. Come back at me when we're done. So I went into Zoe's room, and it took me 2 or 3 hours sitting there because it's a tough. But the everlasting salvation and the thought of that everlasting salvation was there, and I needed to save her soul in order to be with us.
Yeah, religion again. I've just found with I don't know if there's any more to that body cam, but I found another video from the trial. So I think we'll just watch it, just see if there is any more to it.
Tony, you coming downstairs? All right. We left. Yeah, upstairs. I think so. Tony, you upstairs? Hey, come downstairs, bud. All right. Yeah, take your time. Help? Everything's all right, man. Just stay calm. All right.
Ready? Hey, we're gonna check this.
Go to the kitchen. Or whatever it is. Any children here?
I can't remember if they went to a sister last week.
Keep coming down.
Yeah.
Like 7-7.
You know, I think sometimes the police, I know they get bad press, don't they? But imagine the trauma of finding a family like this. I was just looking for the press conference where the police officer who was giving the conference actually broke down in tears when he was talking about finding the little girl. I couldn't find it, but I just, you know, they were so, he never cried. He never cried. Well, he cried in court. We didn't cry during his confession. And there's the police. How traumatic to have to deal with those sort of scenes.
Where's your wife's at? What's up? Oh, you good? You got any weapons on you? Okay. Any needles?
Because that's the first thing that they've got to deal with is he could have a bloody shotgun and just blast them all.
No, I have something like that.
What's your wife's name?
Megan.
Has anyone heard herself?
No.
Megan?
Megan.
All right, come on down, buddy. All right.
God, the woman's going up there first. That's brave. I'll tell you what, I'd be terrified to go up there. Just watching this, they must have had a sinking feeling. Because, well, they could smell the odour for a start, and then just the feeling that they must have had.
Yep. All right, just sit, have a seat. You good? I got you. So have a seat. Megan, face forward. All right. Put your hands forward. All right.
Megan?
Oh,
Gotta walk over.
Megan?
Looks like that. What's that?
Sorry.
All right, just stay still on it. Okay.
One 24-011. Maybe 51 over here. I believe we got 2 signal 7.
All right, okay. You want me to get a chair for you to sit down in? What's that?
Hey, can you run out there and grab some gloves?
We still can't find a daughter.
What?
Where's Zoe?
I haven't seen her. She went with Oh, no, I didn't see her.
oh my God, that was just anyway. So now she's asking him, where is Zoe? Because Zoe was the little girl, and they couldn't find Zoe because she was, as we were saying earlier, she was so decomposed. She was under her mother's feet or something, but they're asking him, where's Zoe? Where's Zoe? Because they couldn't find her, or they didn't realize because she was so tiny.
Thank you. I haven't seen her. You can go back and check the garage.
There he is.
Yeah.
So there's the twonk watching this in the court. What was going through his mind, I wonder. Yeah, you might well look ashamed. That must have been so traumatic for everybody, and you know what, I know everybody's innocent till they're proven guilty, and people have a right to a defense. But I could not be a defense lawyer. I just could not do it. To sit there and watch those scenes, look this girl's face here, knowing those children, and you're defending him. But I understand that is the legal system, and it's. It's got to be like that, but I know that I could not do that.
Did you also go to 211 Longview Avenue?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
About how long did it take you to get to this area?
Anyway, that was quite poignant, wasn't it? It really was. So silent in that house, Oh, dear me. Just often a beautiful house. How often do we see that? And it's such a lovely house. But of course, he'd lost the house. that house, they received an eviction order. And this apparently was the actual room, you know, where the bodies were found, or I think the boys were in their bedroom, but the mum and the little girl were in the master bedroom. And they'd been there, he'd been living in that house with these bodies since before Christmas. So, you know, it makes you wonder, where does a family go from this? Where does it go from this, you know, to this? How does that happen? You know, one time everyone's so happy, the lovely children, everything looking great, living in the beautiful house. And then next minute, he's in court crying. He looks a lot healthier there than he did when he was arrested. You know, maybe there was some mental illness concern, but what I can never forgive him for, as well, as apart from the horrible things that he did, was trying to make out that Megan had done it, trying to make out that his wife had done it. How dare he? How dare he? How dare he blame it? You know, he's done what he's done. You know, hold your hands up and admit to it. Same with Chris Watts. You know, to me, and Chris Watts' dad, well, we'll be looking at Chris Watts. He'll be number 5 in this series. This is the first one. It's just a series of 5, like a mini series that I'm going to do about these family annihilators. Let's just we'll move this on. Let's see if we see any more that he's saying. Let me put on his confession again. But I've got to take that off. I have one more little look at what he's saying.
Understand, we have different opinions about it, but the ultimate.
I can see it. You don't want to drag him like a piece of.
No, it's immediate.
Absolutely. Okay. So you get him positioned, you get Alek positioned on the mattress. Which way is he positioned?
He's on his side. Okay. Looking up toward that.
Looking up.
He's looking up towards us, someone else or the other. I'm pretty sure he's facing up to his back.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm going to stop looking at that now. I just want to read to you what the judge said when he was found guilty on 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of animal abuse in the family dog's death, and sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences with 1 extra year for the dog. The judge told him he was a destroyer of worlds. That's how he described him. And he had lived for weeks in that house with those bodies. I mean, what? Anyway, you can't try and imagine what was going through his mind, I suppose. Now, I'm just trying to see, did he... Oh, he said he was going to appeal. So this article that I'm looking at was in 2022. I can't find much updates of him. Normally when you put in things about people, they'll say something about what their life is like in prison or this. Let's have a look at this one, which is saying that he's appealing. So apparently he filed an appeal in 2022. But he maintains his innocence, he said. Let's just have a look at this photo of him. What a twonk. So we've all watching this on, I'm going to be pressing my what a twonk button to talk about this. So we'll see. See if I can find any more detail. I maintain my innocence. Oh, for God's sake. Let's see if I can just see if he has appealed or if it's been rejected. It's just saying that he's appealed, so file to appeal. Appeal sentence. I can't see anything that says that his appeal has been successful anyway. It just says that he has appealed. Let's see. I think I have to presume that he's not been successful in his appeal, because I can't find anything to say that he has been successful. Though having said that, I can't find anything to say that he hasn't. But if I hear anything, I will update you. So there you go. That's the very sad case of the Todt family murders, or Todt or Tot. I'm not sure how that's pronounced. You know, the very sad case of Tony Todt murdering his whole family, his wife Megan and those beautiful children, little Zoe, so tiny that they couldn't even identify her, but didn't even realise her body was there for a while. You know, so sad. Anyway, I'm sorry if that's depressed you, but you know, we have to keep these cases in the, you know, we have to talk about them. We have to remember the victims. We just have to, we owe it to them. And we are also, work has to be done to see why do these things happen? What makes these men, because remember right back to the beginning of this video, it is normally men. What makes these men think that this is a good idea, or, you know, that this is what they have a right to do? How did he, you know, you just think of him, was it, had his, like I would go with him with the mental health thing, except for him trying to say that his wife had done it. And that, so then what can you even, he's not so, you know, he's not so immersed in bad mental health that he can't think of an excuse and blame it on his wife. Same with Chris Watts. So really, yeah, just trying to get out of it themselves. He's maintaining his innocence, you know, and trying to blame Megan, a woman who cannot speak up for herself because he's murdered her. And also, for all intents and purposes, you know, a really good mother, a lovely mother. He's trying to besmirch her name. There should be an extra charge for that. You know, I mean, he's got 4 life sentences anyway and a year for the dog, so he's not coming out of prison. There should be an extra punishment for the fact that he's besmirching his wife, his murdered wife's name. You know, that makes me so angry. So I'm, you know, just not fair, is it? You know, to cast aspersions on someone who's not with us anymore, who can't defend themselves. So that's why we have to talk about these cases, because we are these people's voices. You know, we don't forget. And when people like Tony Todt tried to appeal their convictions and try and get out of prison, we have to remember why they're in prison. We have to make sure we can give a voice. We can, you know, public opinion does count, and we can. You just, I mean, if you can't rely on the legal system, you know, if he appealed that conviction and he was released, it'd be like, oh my God. You know, so we've got to make sure he isn't. We've got to keep being outraged. We've got to be outraged. It's good that we're outraged, because when the day comes that we're not outraged anymore, That's not a good day, is it? Okay, so that is that story. Number 2, I will be looking at the case of John Miles Sharp. I'm not sure when number 2 will come out. I'll try and give you a heads up. And John Miles Sharp, it's an Australian guy. This happened in Victoria, Australia. I know a lot of my subscribers are from Australia now because of the Samantha Murphy case. And I'll be looking at his case. He's another twonk, another horrible person. I don't think he tried to blame it on anyone else. That's about the most that you can say about him. But to me, he's just the guy who just got fed up of being married and having a family. So remember to live and love carefully, wisely. It's hard to know how to avoid, you know, if you see any of these signs in your partner, you know, you do have to go and seek help. Or if you are that partner and you feel that you're getting these ideations of, you know, killing your family, that is not cool. It is not good. It is not normal. As soon as that idea even pops into your head once, that maybe it'd be a good idea to murder my partner and my whole family, get to the doctors. You know, you can't do that. It's not a good thing to do. It's not a good idea on any way, shape or form. So if you're a man who's having those thoughts, get to a doctor or refer yourself to a doctor, get to the police, do something. And if you're a woman whose partner is having those thoughts, you have to get out of there for the sake of your children, if not for you. Don't be ashamed. It's nothing for you to be ashamed of, to go to the police or to go to your family and say what's going on. You've just got to get out, run. Salir corriendo, that's a song, a Spanish song by Amaral. It's a brilliant song. Of course, it's in Spanish, so there's no point in me really singing it to you, but it's just, you know, it's the first sign of anything that you don't feel comfortable with. Get out of there, you know. Salir corriendo means leave running, you know, don't hang about. Okay, I'll see you really soon in the next video. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for watching, liking, subscribing. Special thank you to my members, those of you who buy me a Ko-fi, send me a super. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you.